Welcome to Insurance Technology Amplified, the podcast where we explore how innovation is transforming the insurance industry. This is the place where technology and expertise come together to empower agents, carriers, and the industry alike. Thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get to the show.
I wanted to welcome the audience, to all 5 of you out there in the universe who are listening to this. Welcome to the Momentum Amplified second episode of our podcast. I think when you talk about a title, we did put a lot of thought into what we're actually, calling this podcast, and we did discuss future-proofing your agency. When I was talking, when I told my kid that I have a podcast, they're like, "Oh, that's so cool. What do you talk about?" I said, "Insurance technology." They said, "Oh, that's not so cool." But I think it's pretty cool, and I'm excited about it. And we've got the usual suspects here with me and my counterparts. We've got the CEO of Momentum, Peter Germanov, and we have Adam Kiefer, who's the president of our Momentum Rate and our Momentum Wholesale Network with us. And we're really excited about our real first guest, Steve Anderson. Steve, I don't need to blow smoke up your ass, but you're a legend in your mind and in mine. And we're really excited to have you. Stacy, who's our head of marketing, our producer, she knows I'm a bit of an idiot. So she spoon-fed and held my hand and wrote out this bio, which I want to take just for the people listening who don't know you, just to tell them a little bit about you. Steve is the co-founder of Catalyst, the go-to resource for independent insurance agencies navigating technology. Steve has 35 years of experience in the industry, a master's in insurance law. Most impressive to me anyway, you've got 340,000 followers on LinkedIn, a recognized expert in risk, tech, and productivity. He's a best-selling author of the Bezos Letters, breaking down Amazon's growth principles, and his insights have been featured in USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes. Steve is joining us from Franklin, Tennessee. And Steve, genuinely, thank you. We're really excited to have you here.
Well, no, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I look forward to our conversation.
So I've got 20 bullet point.
How much time do we have?
However much it is. I know when I talk, I usually suck the oxygen out of the room, and that's definitely a common theme. However much time we have, we don't have enough time. But there are a lot of things that I want to cover with you. And one of the themes that we keep coming back to is AI. And I think anybody who ignores AI ignores it at their own peril. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as, the theme of the show is future-proofing your agency and thinking about AI and how that comes into play. And, I have a whole bunch of questions I'd love to discuss with you, but just to kind of kick it off, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, what's exciting about AI. I know Peter already, before we started recording, had a question that we'll jump into, but already, shut up.
I've been around long enough to actually remember the internet starting. I registered my steveanderson.com domain in, I believe, 1996. So a little late, but not too late, I guess. And I do agree with several people who have said, the current iteration of AI, and there's a long history there. The term artificial intelligence was first used over 50 years ago. So this is, not new in terms of a concept. The current iterations are a couple years old. The generative AI and what we really kind of talk about now as AI. And I kept trying to call it generative AI to distinguish it. And I think I've given up. It's just AI, and that's the latest iteration of it. I do think it is changing, and I'm putting that in present tense for a purpose. It is changing how business is done, and it is changing how productivity can be increased because it allows individuals, both personal and in business, so agency staff, it allows them to get done in a better and faster way what we need to get done. And we have to be careful. I mean, I'm very much of a advocate of technology is not good or bad. How people use it can be good or bad. So we have to be careful with some of that and be aware of it. I agree with your comment, Michael, in terms of, if you're not actively experimenting, testing, looking right now, you will be at some point in the future. And just if you start now, or you allow someone in your organization to start playing, and I use that word a lot around technology because we don't all know what's going to happen, but if you start playing with it and start seeing what it might be capable of, you'll be much farther ahead of the game than other agencies who don't. I'll just leave it at that. By the way, I will address Peter's question now. He asked me, what's my favorite LLM? So LLM, large language model, those are the foundational models. So OpenAI has their ChatGPT, Anthropic has Claude, Google. I mean, there are a handful of kind of foundational models now. I would say my still current favorite is ChatGPT, partly because that's what I started using 2 years ago when it came out, and have been building that knowledge base. And they were the first to come out with custom GPTs, so you could kind of craft it into something that you could, it would be very specialized for you. I've been experimenting, playing with Claude. Claude seems to be a bit better with some of the writing capabilities, et cetera. And there are other ones that are, I mean, you look at the lists of all the AI pop-ups, it's huge, right? And they're all looking at solving a particular, kind of issue, problem, or help. And that's all of that has caught my attention. And in fact, I did last year, actually almost a year ago, next month, I did a 4-part, 1 hour, 4-week webinar on AI for independent agents. And I broke each week down into a different segment. So I've been doing this for, what some may consider a long time, but it's really short in history of, and moving really fast.
Peter, I want to give you the opportunity. I know you're super involved in AI, and I want to make sure
that's your fault, Michael, and I'll get to that. But just to finish Steve's point, in terms of pure, like Steve said, there's a lot of different flavors now. I tend to gravitate towards the open source ones, and one that is particularly.
So is that DeepSeek or is that others?
Well, anything outside of Claude, I believe, and OpenAI, which have decided to close their. But now we'll see what happens with Elon pushing them to open. But that's. But in terms of replacing,
I saw a great piece yesterday on why he made the offer. I don't know if you saw this, but I don't know if you can believe everything you see online. But he didn't want to buy them, but he knows that OpenAI and Sam Altman is trying to move from like the non-for-profit to a for-profit. And by making that offer, he basically put in a bona fide valuation that they can't do an insider deal for anything less than $97 billion. Otherwise, it would breach their shareholder fiduciary responsibility.
Right. And we all know that he was part of the founders and moved
Yep.
away when that happened. So, but not to plug anything in, but my favorite for pure Google replacement search is Perplexity AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right there on every answer, it gives you the sources and always provides, in addition to the very well formatted text, it gives you videos and articles and stuff like that. So it's I find it very useful. And that's actually a great point in the sense that the first use of AI, I'm sure all of our clients do this, is completely unattached to their tech stack with what they do insurance. So you don't have to have anything integrated to be able to use AI. Like I use it to do the research, to even like check text, to generate images, completely outside of any of our systems, including the systems we use for our own business. But back to one little thing, and I'll give release the floor. How I get involved with AI is Michael's fault. Michael likes to. I don't use. Michael, what is the video? I don't use TikTok, so Michael knows this, but he, he's addicted to it. So every night I get my, bunch of links where he converts them to actual videos and sends them to me. And I remember 3 months ago, he sends me one that says, SaaS is dead, AI will kill SaaS. And obviously I freaked out. And I said, Michael, I still have kids in college. I need to pay the tuition. So what are we going to do? So 3 months ago, I started on the journey of I need to educate myself. Good news. It's not that bad. So actually last night I watched a very cool video that says you are not behind. We can start now in 2025 and be, in the forefront of the agentic AI. So it's not as bad as it seems, which I think it's a key point for our clients. AI is the big keyword, but I think kind of all the noise surrounding AI misses the bigger point. AI is one component of automation. So I think we need to kind of scale back the hype a little bit and direct the conversation towards automation in general. And the bulk of automation, it's still not necessarily AI agentic related. In my experience, and I've tried all the platforms out there, we played, like Steve says, we love to play twice a week. We have like half day reserved with all the geeks in the company, and we do play with all the different models and platforms. And I found out that enterprise ready are very few of them. So they can definitely help, and it's coming, and we're learning as we go, and we're picking out code, no code, varieties. But the point is that we're still not there where AI will replace us, but it's very important to start interweaving AI stuff into regular automation workflows, where I think that's where the value is.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that, Peter. I do agree. And, there are a lot of things we do in an agency that really can be streamlined. Simple things like note-taking. So recording a call using an AI model, a tool, to summarize that call, and that becomes the documentation along with the recording, as opposed to somebody spending 15 minutes, making notes on a call to document it in the file. Certainly document comparison, policy checking, contract review. There's a lot of things that take a lot of time that the current models of AI really do a pretty good job of. I just want to reinforce, it's enhancing humanity, it's not replacing. And I think that's a key piece here. It's allowing a CSR to not spend 3 hours doing a policy comparison and only take whatever it is, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever the time frame is, but then having the time, because the biggest issue I hear from agents all the time, well, we don't have time to do all the other things, like call clients and do reviews and do, those are the value things we should be doing, because we're buried in the, as a friend of mine says, soul-sucking transaction processing.
Mm-hmm.
That nobody wants to do. So we are actually replacing what you don't want to do to allow you to be better at what you do.
you said it really well there. Like it's enhancing the agents, not replacing the agents. But I feel like, and you've been in the industry a little longer than I have, but I've been doing this for 20 years, and it feels like every new technology is going to replace the agent. Like that's the first gut reaction is like this is going to take my place, right? And then we've got to walk it back, whether it's the online rating platforms, the comparative rating platform, like whatever. Like they were all going to, the direct to consumer online, products were going to replace the agent. Now AI is going to replace the agent, and it never does. And it always kind of adds and enhances the agent. Why do you, like? I just always wondered, what is it about the insurance agent that is it the tech guys coming at them saying we're going to replace you, or is it the agents just being so sensitive to that being replaced? Like, why do you think there's always this kind of walk back with technology in the insurance agency world, where they have to kind of say like, no, this is an enhancement to me, not replace me?
And is that unique to just our industry? Like, do you think the trucking guys are like, oh man, AI is going to replace the trucking brokers? I feel like it's unique to us, where every new tech iteration is an existential crisis.
Well, and I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes. I really go back to the internet. I mean, I did a roadshow with Encompass Insurance, which was the personal lines division. Blah blah blah. I won't even go. I'd have to think about all the connections there, but it was a roadshow, physical, going to 20 different locations, agent meetings, talking about why they need to have a website. Right? Because, again, online presence, you need to, and that was the underlying fear was that, those that people would go and buy online and not need the agent anymore. Well, we've disproved that over many years now. And clients aren't going to stand for us doing it the way we did 20 years ago, because that was too much friction for the customer. So we need to adapt, and it allows agents to actually be what their value is, which is that local community presence, relationship building, and getting a quote if you're talking to somebody at your child's softball game on your phone while you're sitting there and having a conversation, be able to. It's all those little things, but that relationship piece is still there. And I think it actually will enhance and is enhancing that relationship piece.
Peter, made a comment in terms of, the agents and, how they're going to apply it. And I always like to think about like a practical approach, because like it's super important to me and to us that the people listening, when they finish with this, broadcast or podcast, like they're smarter. And, we could talk about these like global issues, but Steve, for somebody that has seen the amount that you've seen, and I think there are very few people that have the agent experience that you have and the AI experience that you've been cultivating. So from a practical perspective, I know agents, hire you and you do consulting and the advisory work that you do at Catalyst. How do we break this down? And it might be hard if you can't do a demo or you can't like start screen sharing, which, we can't in this format, but, to the average agent who doesn't know where to start, like, and that's, the point that, Peter was mentioning, like, it's never too late. You're not behind. Help me convey like a practical next step to an agent of like, where do you begin? Like, what do you do? Because I'm kind of all over this. And every time I sit down, I start with, Perplexity, and then, Perplexity can't, crawl the web. And then Gemini can't, provide a link. And, it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. What's a practical piece of advice that you would give the average independent agent that doesn't have a massive budget, to start figuring this out? I know you said just like start, but go a little deeper.
Yeah, so let me give you, and I've been thinking about this a lot, because I agree, especially the smaller agent who may not have much of a budget. And I do believe a lot of things are already starting to be built into their management system platforms, whatever that looks like. Applied's doing it, Vertifor's doing it, you guys are doing it. They're building it.
Beat that out. Momentum.
Momentum is doing it. Thank you. There you go. Momentum AMP, agency management platform. And I think there's a whole lot of what's the right word I want to use? Lower hanging fruit. Let me give you an example. Let me try and be practical. I believe very strongly that video is a real powerful relationship building tool. And so I've been advocating for replacing text email with video email. So just record yourself, send it, play it. Kind of corollary to that is doing explainer videos, or, hey, you had a claim, here are some things you should know about. Well, the barrier seems to be that agents have a hard time understanding how to do it, right? Not just the technical, you can turn on a camera and record, that's pretty easy. But what do I say? How do I write it? So to try and help with that, I have built a custom GPT, so a custom version of ChatGPT that I call a short video script creator. So an agent can paste into that custom GPT, kind of like the prompt window if people have been using any of these, and it in the background has the rules for what is a good viral video script. The first, 5 seconds is the hook. What's the hook going to be? The next is, what's the premise? The next, they're like 8 different sections. And you can say, I want to create a 2-minute video script that has all these pieces to it. You paste in an article or a page off your website, it will create the script, and then you can just read the script and record it, and that now becomes your video. So to me, that's a practical type of thing that an agency could use, like if they, have the right way to ask the questions, etc.
So to add to that, if you're like me with a face for radio and an accent from hell, we use another tool. You can actually take that script and feed it into, we use Synthesia, but there's multiple out there.
Yep.
And it will create, using your avatar, it can pick any language or any accent you want. It will take that script and create a really nice video, realistic, based on the script you gave it, without ever recording anything. We actually are using this as part of our interactive proposals. So we have the proposal, and then you can feed that, and it will narrate the proposal for the client. And again, as you say, it is a relationship building tool. So
yeah, and I think that's very true. And I think the other thing is that agents shouldn't be afraid of telling people they're using these tools. In fact, they should be upfront, because I think if they're not, people assume they are, and if you're trying to hide it, that doesn't build trust. That actually reduces trust. We're using it, and actually I advocate that avatar, Peter, that you talk about, create a persona for it. Name it something, right? So for me, it's Steve Eney, right? My digital doppelganger.
Well, what do you call it?
Steve Eney. Or Stevette. I keep going back and forth. But
so Richard, all of our training videos, our in charge, so you can make an avatar in your liking. You literally record yourself for about a minute and a half, and it will use your face and your your voice and everything else. But have some fun with it. You can use different ones.
So and again, it's attention grabbing, right?
One last. Not only is it you reveal and your agent is not afraid, knows that you're using AI, but if I know somebody that's working for me, like an agent, is using AI tools, I'm more confident that I'm being taken care of, right? There's my agent who is, with the times, as opposed to somebody who's stuck in the 80s and I may be left behind compared, with the competition. Yeah.
So, Steve, you mentioned a couple of things, and I want to jump on a few of them. but one of them, when it comes to, let's say, generative AI or voice AI, so you talk about embracing that you're using AI. If AI starts making phone calls, right, whether we make phone calls to sell our AMP or our AMS to agents, or we're now powering a tool for renewals, right? So we're going to trigger an AI for the agent to call the insured that renewal is coming. Yes or no, guys? Do we need to disclose that it's an AI? If the quality is good enough that you can't tell, which I don't think it's 100% there yet, but quick, yes or no? Do you need to disclose it? Should we have to disclose it? Peter, yes or no?
Absolutely yes.
Adam,
all of our agents disclose it. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably. But I think to Steve's point, right, is like it's not a bad thing. It's not cheating, right? It's a tool, and I think there's a little bit. Maybe I've just heard people kind of like, oh, you used AI like you cheated, right? Like we're not taking tests in school, right? And so I think using it to enhance what you're already doing, I think as long as you're saying you're using it, it's an advantage.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, and again, I go back to create a persona around it, create it, name it. I mean, have some fun with it, and there are again a number of platforms that will answer phone, inbound as well as outbound, and I think a great way to start is after hours. Use that after hours as a place to start experimenting with it, and agents are going to assume, because I keep hearing this, well, my clients won't like that. And I said, prove it. Try it and see. And after hours, you're going to have your cell phone ringing, maybe. But if it's an emergency claim, absolutely have your cell phone. But if it's a kind of a normal question, why not?
So I actually think we're very on the cusp of where people will prefer an AI agent to a human because they know they will get proper service.
And probably better answers. And that's
what I mean.
So another practical, I've done this for me, and I'm kind of experimenting on behalf of agents. I took all of my personal policies, home, auto, article floater, umbrella, put them into a custom GPT, and now I can ask it questions about my insurance coverage. So think about an agency creating by carrier a ask Chubb, ask Travelers, ask, right? And personal commercial, I'd probably, narrow the knowledge base down some. But now your staff doesn't, when I was in an agency in Texas, we had one person, Bill, who was the coverage expert. You had a question about a coverage, you went to Bill and asked the question. Now every agency can have a Bill who has the answers and can say, think about the LA wildfires. I actually saw this online. Somebody put up a bot that you could upload your, homeowner's policy, your home policy, whatever it is, and you could ask questions. Say, I had a fire. What do I need to know? And again, early stages, but it's a really interesting. I think internally, a lot of this stuff can be really helpful in an agency.
Yeah.
Think about carrier appetite. Think about how you have to go through lists, but just ask the question. Here's the
I was on a call with an agent this morning, and he wanted to verify the minimum insurance for commercial trucking in Texas. And I've been an agent for a long time. I don't know. I'll get back to you. I'll find out. Which is fine, right? But ChatGPT probably could answer that in a second, right?
And here's another similar idea. Just one more real quick. Personal. I live in a historic home in a historic overlay section of Franklin, Tennessee, and so to do any outside renovations or changes, you have to go through the Historic Zoning Commission. They have I think it's probably a 150-page document on design guidelines. I put that into a custom GPT and then set it up so people can start asking questions about, I want to put solar panels on my house. What are the guidelines? and not have to read through and try and figure out where all that
I did the
is.
same thing, fighting a variance.
Yep.
I uploaded my floor plans. I said, please check the flood zone requirements. I did the same thing.
Yep.
So I'd like to say, great minds. Thinking about, one of the things we talk about, because there's AI is vast, right? It literally permeates everything. It's voice, it's video, it's research. So as you think about that carrier idea, I thought was, quite elegant. I know we're an industry that likes standards or has standards and loves to hate the standards, so to speak. I think that might be a better. Do you think there will be a standard, or do you think that it'll just be market share? I mean, I'd like to think that as an AMP or our downstream AMS, we have an advantage. I think we all know that agents don't like logging into 19 places. So the more that we could deliver, and we're delivering a lot on the glass, I think that's where agents want it. And we're open and we're making it available. But, from a prompt library perspective, right, that's something we're talking about. Just, do you envision a standard? Do you envision this being the Wild West as it pertains to all the carrier content? How do you see that playing out?
So there are a couple of thoughts that come to mind when you say that. One, I think, prompting may end up kind of going away, kind of the way we think of prompt engineering, right? Asking the right questions to get the answers you expect. I actually have a custom GPT that I can put into it. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish, and it will write the prompt for me based on OpenAI's prompt guideline, how to get out of it. So it gives me a starting place. And my prompts typically...
But it's still a prompt. The output is still a prompt at the end of the day, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess my initial thought is I don't see standards for a while yet. One, because things are moving so fast. I don't think there's time right now to actually try and figure out a standard. And the different models, whoever's out there now and continuing to develop, or whoever we don't know of yet, like DeepSeek all of a sudden popped up, they'll have different ways. So you'll have to learn how to get the most out of those platforms, just like we're learning how to get the most out of Perplexity or OpenAI or Claude or whatever. So I do think it will be, it won't be like data standards, right? At least for quite a while. I think there's still more of the Wild West idea. And the better you are at understanding how to get I think this is, for me at least, a key phrase. How do I get the answers I expect? Meaning, right? How do I ask the right questions to get the answers I expect? So, I don't know. I don't see that yet. I think we're too much in the Wild West.
Yeah, one concern, as usual, is just the security and the privacy issue. And with AI becoming more powerful and data proliferating, I think we'll see, tightening of some of these regulations and what access AI have, to the different systems, because that currently, like in building, in playing around with building agents, it becomes an issue as to, it's nice to put something out there, but then you realize who else can actually access that, and AI agents themselves can figure out how to get to your own agent. So you have to use strict security standards.
Well, and I think, Peter, that's why it's part of what I've been thinking and actually starting to build something for agencies. But they need AI guidelines. They need an AI statement. They need I don't know quite the right name for them, but for their staff, they need, here's how we are thinking of AI, here's how we're approaching it, here's what we allow, here's what we question, and here's what we don't allow. And being very clear, because one of the big problems right now is shadow AI. So I would say in many agencies, people are using AI. They're just not talking about it, or it's behind the curtain. And I think agencies need to be giving instructions on how it can be used in the agency and what the guidelines are.
Can you elaborate what you mean on shadow AI?
I'm sorry?
You said shadow AI. What do you mean by that?
That people in the organization are using AI and not talking about it. So it's being used. So the question is, are you going to have guidelines, like Peter said, in terms of what goes in and what's okay and what's not okay?
So you mean there's no policy for the company?
There's no policy.
Certain individuals are actually utilizing AI tools, but there should be a centralized policy as to what's admissible and how it's done.
So I'm sitting here as Steve's talking. I'm trying to host, but I'm also writing notes and crap. He just gave me 5 more things that we need to think about and add to our list.
Well, I can help with that.
Well,
that's every company, right? I mean, every company is dealing with the same issues.
It's not unique to agencies.
You've got some intern who's loading personally protected information into OpenAI. That's a problem.
Well, and again, I think that's understanding the platform. So, for example, one of the advantages of the paid ChatGPT, at least the first level, $20 a month, really cheap, is there is a switch to turn off sharing data to train the model. Now, you have to believe that switch actually works, right? Which, I don't know. I have chosen to believe it. But, so you need to be smart about how you set things up, and you need to be smart about, before you put something in there, strip out PII, right? These tools are really good. Here's part, for you guys, one of the big problems with agencies and their database systems, their policy management systems, has been reporting. Well, why learn SQL reporting when I can just take an Excel spreadsheet, post it in here, and start asking questions? Now, I want to be careful I don't have, PII. But strip that out so I can make informed decisions based on sales trends and, all kinds of stuff that, so those are some things I see actually pretty low-hanging fruit, kind of back to my phrase I used earlier.
That's one of the things. Our AI list is really quite long, but we're really tackling a lot of it. But one of the items at the very top of the list is what you're describing. And we've coined a phrase here, we call it conversational reporting. Mm-hmm. And it is so bloody cool. And I think the insights that agents will have on their business that AI currently is providing, we have a partner, Intrinsic, and they have a product called Informer. I don't know if you know.
I think they just did a webinar.
That's what they do. Yeah, I mean, that's what they have built there. It's a great product. Yeah.
So shameless, pitch here, but they're amazing. They're leading edge, and you're obviously working with them, and so are we. And to somebody who's listening to this, if you want 4K high def visibility into your business and operations, I think it's something that only your AMS will be able to provide, and with access to tools like that, and it's incredibly powerful. Peter, yeah.
By the way, you can use that tool and say, give me a list of my top 20 clients by premium, and by the way, scramble the names, and it will actually output that and scramble the names of the insurance if you have to send it to the MGA for proof or whatever it is. Yeah, so
one of the things I've been really surprised at with these tools is how well they do with data. And so, early experiment, and I demoed this last year when I did my webinar series. I took a search on LinkedIn. You just have a search, and I literally just Control-A and grabbed the screen, pasted that in, and told it, here's the format here, and I want an output in first name, last name, company name, whatever the elements were. It took that unstructured data and output a table that I could pop right into an Excel spreadsheet. And I even asked it, a different one, but I even asked it with a list of emails that may not have had all first name and last name, to try and extrapolate from the email address what the names were. and the domain, the website domain from the email. So it's just really interesting, the capability that is available right now. And I say, like everybody else says, today's the worst it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
Michael, I kind of want to ask Steve
Go for
where
it.
he sees the industry 100 years. I mean, 100 years, like
100.
6 months to well, maybe they're
I-
solving all kinds of.
Peter, thank you, but I don't think I'm going to be around then.
You'd be
I had
amazed
5 years.
with the amount of research that's going into genetics and medication that AI is solving that's prolonging. Who knows? Maybe we're very close to the eternal life, but yeah, like maybe 1 year from now. But before that, I like a little side effect we found as we were building these workflow agents. A little interesting thing came out. We're like trying to figure out what is the chain of reactions looks like, and if you're using Landgraph, what are the different states and going back. And we found out something very interesting among the experts in our own software, and we'll have a lot of agency and insurance process people. We found out that we don't actually have a very good grasp of what the actual business processes should be. So there was some confusion between, and you find this reflected among our clients too, like agencies of same size and same composition basically have very different workflows. So one very interesting side note to this was before we build these agents and tell them how to automate everything, we kind of need to step back and figure out, well, what is the best workflow? Because I can teach somebody to do it. I need to tell them, but this is how you should be doing it, right? And I understand there may be 3 different flavors, but I still need to define that So that was just an interesting, side effect of us trying to build these automated agent chains, that we found out that we first need to clean up the underlying business processes and workflows before we can, automate them. So
Well, and I can tell you, Peter, from experience, getting anybody or everybody in an agency to agree on what the best workflow is, it is what's the right word I want to use? Difficult.
difficult, yeah. Touche.
A lot of screaming and yelling in conference rooms when you're trying to figure that out.
I'm usually the shrink on the Zoom
Yes.
that tries to calm down the different departments here.
Yep.
Yeah, but
So to Peter's question, I had it framed a little differently, and it's such a broad question. But 5 years from now, 5. Let's go with 5. And again, but like anything after a year, like just the pace of change in AI is insane. But 5 years from now, how is an independent agent going to be different than it is today?
Well, I have 2 answers to that question, and I've thought about that question a lot because last year I was attending a presentation where the person asked, what do you think is going to change in 20 years? What's not going to change in 20 years? And I thought it was a really interesting question. So I actually went back 20 years. And I think it was, 2018 or whatever, and started looking at what were the things we thought we knew then, and then projecting. But I think you're right, Michael. Yeah, let's take 5 years. I mean, go back 5 years. What has changed in 5 years, or where were we? Well, we didn't have the generative AI tools that we have today. They're 2 years old. So trying to go ahead 5 years with all the change, I think there will be a lot of process changes. I think what won't change is the relationship that agents have with their clients. And that's why all of the naysayers for as long as I've been in this business, frankly, all the naysayers who said the independent agent is the middleman nobody needs. Well, consumers have voted, and they don't agree.
Well,
Part of it is all of those technology people look at the agent distribution system and say, "Oh, we can fix that." I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah, it happened last week. A new AI company came and said, "You think we should tackle quoting?" I'm like, "Dude, come on, man! Like, please, like,
Yeah. Well,
But
and a lot of them that we talk about today won't be around in 5 years.
so, can I be the devil's advocate for a minute?
You
Because
can.
when I first joined the industry and I worked at a carrier, one of the first jobs that I was given, and I believed in all my heart that digital and technology is going to supplant and replace the agent. I believed that. I did. I learned a lot in the 5 years that I was at a carrier, and I do not believe that anymore. But let's be the devil's advocate and use me as an example, right? I'm in the insurance technology business. When I had my startup, I had to buy cyber and E&O, and I called my broker. I'll name drop. It was Ryan Hanley. I called Ryan, and I said, because I could have gone online, I could have filled out a form, but I didn't know enough. There wasn't an element of trust. I wasn't sure, but that's something that trust you can't get from a form or a website. But I think AI is different. So I'm not saying I believe it, but if we get to a point where the generative voice picks up and it has your carrier, info built into the LLM, and there's a recording that says you're the 7,000th person to take this call, and there hasn't been a claim, I feel like something's going to give. Maybe it's not middle market just yet, and I think that's always a good demarcation. But something's got to change. I think this is more transformative than the launch of digital and the web in the late 90s.
Yeah, well, one, I would agree with you on that. Two is, as these LLMs, platforms get better, get more powerful, I think kind of like you called Ryan. Could you have gone online? Yes, but
I didn't. But
well, I would say even if you had, you would have gotten frustrated pretty quickly trying to compare. Now, will Ryan or someone like him use those tools to help you narrow things down? I think the answer to that is yes. And there's still something about wanting to speak to a person with a big decision on protecting your financial future.
Steve, you and I, you mentioned you bought Steve Anderson in 1996. In 1996, we've discussed this. I owned the domain name flower.com. Mm-hmm. So I was buying keywords 3 years before Google was founded. And you remember when Mark Cuban bought his G4, it was the largest single purchase on the internet, and ice.com was selling diamonds, and nobody would buy a diamond online, and that changed. There was a certain element of distrust that kind of went away, and I don't want to say it'll be completely supplanted, and I think one of the things that happens in this industry is people use the word always and never, and I think those are silly words, and I think if we look at it in this absolute binary way, I think we're kidding ourselves, but I think there will be a death by 1,000 paper cuts process of maybe it'll be my homeowner's policy, which is super simple, or my renter's insurance. Yes, if I have a 7-building multifamily with 82 Excel sheets, that probably is not going to happen overnight, but I to be the devil's advocate, but part of me does believe that, especially within the next 5 years, there will be certain elements of this that the AI and the intelligence will develop a level of trust. And I think if we ignore that, and our agents, we want to make these tools available to them. It's not at their peril. It's at their, we're weaponizing them with these tools.
I think that's actually a good word. And so again, devil's advocate, and why is Geico setting up an independent agent channel? Kind of the premier direct-to-consumer play is appointing independent agents to sell Geico.
Yep.
Actively.
So my question is, if I was the devil's advocate and you became the devil's advocate to my devil's advocate, what does that make you?
What happened?
I'm already confused. I tuned out by 5 minutes.
Too many advocates. But I think you're right, Steve, with the relationship piece we were talking about. I think relationship will always, and to counter Michael, I think I will use always. I think the relationship is always going to be important, but I think it changes what that relationship is, right? Like I have a relationship with Amazon because they know when I'm out of Diet Coke and it's time to order new ones, right? Like, so what I'm expecting from that relationship isn't.
So
you're
cheating.
You're
cheating. You're basically taking the word relationship, which is synonymous with like a human interpersonal, and applying it to a digital form. Yeah,
so
Peter.
Obviously, I know a lot about Amazon, so I won't go down a rabbit hole there. I think the difference is, and I spent a long time thinking about this over a few years. What is the difference with an independent agent? Why? Why have they been so darn resilient? And what I came up with is that there are 40,000-ish independent agents in the United States that are in towns, small towns, big towns. They're at baseball games, they're at church, they're at Kiwanis clubs, they're at the country club, they're where other people are. And a Geico and a pick whoever you want direct to consumer cannot replicate that distribution and all of those points of contact. So when I say relationship,
you don't see Elon Musk's Tesla bot showing up at a baseball game handing out business cards in the next 5 years.
I do not.
Okay,
I do not.
Peter,
but they need those tools, though. I mean, Michael, you're talking about Colin Hanley, and we all know Hanley, so we can pick on him a little bit. But like, you made this relationship with him. If Ryan called you back and said, "Hey, fax me this accord," like, what would you have done, right? Like, you trust him, but you still need those tools, and I think agents need to understand that they need those tools to bring addition to that relationship. Right? Like, the relationship's important, but the tools are really important as well.
We almost out of time, right? It's an hour. So I wanted to ask one question from Steve, who probably knows the industry better than anybody else in terms of the tech stack. In 5 years, are the current players providing, I'm not going to name names, but the current tech biggies in the industry that currently provide and for the last 20 plus years have serviced, 40 plus years have serviced
probably more than
the independent agent technology needs. Are they going to be the same players that now have this new paradigm of AI-enabled automation, all that stuff? Are we going to see a completely different landscape of companies, tools? Is SaaS going to be dead? And is this a threat to the existing
back to
agents?
That TikTok, huh?
Well, it's kind of related, right? If SaaS is dead, then I know what will happen to the existing landscape. But
right.
What do you think? I mean, nobody can predict the future, obviously, but just curious what you think.
So it's hard for me to envision that the big players, as I call them, the gorillas in the room, 2, maybe 3, won't adapt, and because of that will be gone. So, and part of that, the reason I say that is...
There's got to be one blockbuster, though, like... One of them will be Blockbuster.
Well, absolutely. And I was just going to say, I mean, all the names, Blockbuster and Barnes & Noble and CompUSA and, all of them. And if they don't continue to adapt to their clients' needs, then someone can come in that does a better job. And the problem I continue to see, and I've seen this for a long time, is that agents don't like change. They and their staff certainly don't like change. And so bringing in something new is a really, really hard decision. Actually, let me rephrase that. Deciding to bring something new in, meaning whole new policy management system, right, a big change. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of resistance, because at least kind of what I know, even if it's not as good as, and financial stability is a big thing with agents. Now, will that change? Actually, it might. It's going to take longer than 5 years. Why could it change? Because there's a whole new generation of agency owners coming.
Yep.
And, one of my trends that I talked about for 2025 is there are actually more independent agents this year than the last few years. Why? Because of all the M&A activity. And producers who didn't have equity got screwed.
Interesting.
Right? And they say, I'm not letting this happen. I'm not building a book for somebody else. I'm doing it myself. And it's easier today than ever to start an independent agency. It's easier to get access to carriers. It's easier. The technology stack is cheaper, and they're not afraid of trying, generally. And the ones that are taking over, daughter or son from dad or mom, whatever, they've got a base to work from that they can build on that. So I see that as a pretty significant shift in that mindset. Now, it'll take X years for all of us old ones to die off, but so
one of the themes, and I was kind of winging it, and I just had a piece that we put in, I think it's Insurance Insider, and there's so much change happening on the supply side, but I think things will only change at the pace of which the users adopt it, right? And I think we have been a relatively slow to adopt, slow to change industry. Being cognizant of time, Steve, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't try to transact some business with you during this, while this is being recorded, and we have this pressure. We would love to create a series of AI for the agent webinar for our agents exclusively that we'd love to engage you. And I'm not going to ask you how much you charge to do it, and we'll talk about it. I'll have the good form to do that offline, but we would love to do that with you. It's our intent to be the premier default go-to place for independent agents to access AI and AI tools, and I can't think of a better person to help lead and guide our agent community into that new chapter. And whether it's 1 or 4 or once a week, we'd love to engage you to do that and to help us learn and to help our agents learn. And
well, I'd be very interested in doing that. I have somewhat jokingly called the kind of AI whatever I'm doing, and I even tell people when I'm talking about it, I'm not an AI expert, but I am an AI student. And so I built my career on sharing what I learned with others. So I'd love to be able to do that. I think this is a big opportunity for agencies that will take the step to experiment, fail, try again. And I think people will find this is an extraordinary tool for them.
Couple of really quick, rapid fire questions. Have you or have you not programmed some LLM to be your own personal Jeff Bezos to what would Jeff do? WWJ, did you build that yet? If not,
it's called Ask Jeff Bezos. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. So I know you, I was only half joking, but so I'd love to.
And I'll be embedding it on my book website so people can go there and just converse. And it's trained on, I'll tell you what, it's trained on, you said short. I have a hard time doing short. It's trained on the letters to shareholders, every 10K from 1997 to current, as well as the contents of my book.
As I'm sure, and let's keep adding to it, every interview he's ever done. And
I haven't done that yet, but I have all of those because I transcribe it.
And his workout and supplement routine, I'd be curious.
That I don't have yet, but it's got to be on the internet somewhere, right?
Another rapid fire question. If you could share one resource, whether it's a newsletter or a podcast or a forum or a blog on AI, it doesn't have to be insurance centric, who you only get one. Who would you?
I only get one. That's what I'm trying to. There are quite a few that I.
You only get one.
Look at. Probably the one that comes to mind, if under pressure, is called The Neuron, Neuron newsletter. Let me see if I can make sure I have the right.
We can find it and post it.
Yeah, we'll post it. And
yeah, or I can get you the link. But yeah, that's one. It's just kind of a daily update about what's happening and conversation around who's doing good, bad, what are the rankings. And, by the way, rankings are almost irrelevant because they all kind of go up and down depending on the day or the hour. But in terms of who's best.
And without naming names, from a sector perspective, right? If you could take your savings or your 401k and you had to invest it in an AI tech company, would it be in generative video? Would it be in an LLM? Like, give me a sector where you would bet the farm.
I think I'd probably stick with the primary LLM platforms. So Perplexity, OpenAI, Anthropic. Google could be included in there, but I feel like the other ones are maybe a little more realistic. Why? Because they're all moving to multimodal, meaning there are video creation tools, Sora. I won't go through the list, but all of the foundational LLM models that are out there are moving to being able to generate images, generate video, transcribe audio, all those kinds of, and even, on their mobile apps, even having the camera point the camera at something and ask it what it sees. I mean, so I think those right now at least have the edge as opposed to some of the others that probably are better. And there are really good video creation platforms out there. But I'm not sure they have the traction or the oomph behind them to keep going longer term.
Peter, Adam, any final thoughts? Any closing remarks?
I wouldn't discount Google or Microsoft.
I know.
That was a mistake.
I know. Well, Microsoft to me is OpenAI-ish. So
yeah,
they use OpenAI. Yeah.
Yep, I know.
My only thing for agents will be, again, these are anxious times, right? A lot of change, and just wanted to let them know that we are the ones that are stressing out so that you can sleep a little better. I mean, we have a lot of stuff in the works. This partnership with Steve now will add to that. So we'll be in webinars and different releases. We'll be adding more and more tools to your armament to enable you to take advantage of this. So you don't have to go out there and do it alone. Basically, we have you back. It's been my message to our clients. Yeah.
Steve, you see how we operate. 3.5 minutes ago, I asked you if you would be willing to do a webinar, and right now, Peter already announced our partnership. So this is how it goes.
That's okay with me. We'll just not even have that, money discussion.
Yeah.
English is a second language. I blame it on that.
Accounts payable at momentumamp.com.
There you go.
Steve, thank you.
A pleasure. I enjoyed our conversation a lot. There was a whole list of questions Stacy said that we never...
I was going to say we covered one of Stacy's 60 questions. At least we got through on Stacy.
Yeah, but if she wouldn't have done it, we would have screamed at her. So she did her job, and she absolutely friggin' killed it as always.
Yeah.
Steve, this is one of those times, and like they make fun of it in the movies. Like, we got to do this again sometime. And every time I spend meaningful time with you, I always feel like I want more of it. And now that Peter cemented our partnership, I know we're going to get it. Thank you, and. Steve, we'll let you close it up. Any final thoughts, any final message, anything you'd like to impart to our joint and collective listeners?
I sort of want to echo what Peter was saying is there is a lot of change going on. you don't need to be afraid of it. There's a lot of help available in terms of, how to use it, what you can do, questions you can ask. And so just start. And if you want to start someplace, identify somebody in your organization that likes to play with technology and give them some freedom to play. Give them parameters and give them freedom within the parameters of what you want. And you'll be surprised I think you'll be surprised at some of the things that can come out of that.
I think we're going to have to rename the hub to Playground. So we're going to call it the Momentum Playground.
Actually, you know what? On the Catalyst site, I have to tell you this. There literally is a page called Steve's Playground where I put stuff on the web, but it's hidden, not accessible except direct link. And it's because that's what I do. So,
well, we're excited to do it together, Steve. Genuinely.
Right. Sounds good. Well, thank you. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye,
good
guys.
seeing you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Insurance Technology Amplified. Be sure to stay connected and up to date by following Momentum AMP on all social networks. For show notes, resources, and details on upcoming episodes, visit our podcast page at momentumamp.com/podcast. We look forward to having you join us next time. Take care and see you soon.